Okay, well, it's great to be here, and I'm excited to deliver this presentation on implementing microcontent into your help system. It was very helpful to get a feel of the audience. I'm delighted to hear that a lot of you are using RoboHelp 2020, or at least the reimagined version or later. And I'm also happy that many of you are new to microcontent and interested in seeing how it can improve your help systems. Or if you're implementing a new one, how you can incorporate it right away. So I just have a little bit of contact information and a few slides that I'd like to go over to introduce you to me and my company, and then provide some context for this particular webinar. So please feel free to reach out to me after this conversation. The last time I did a webinar in January, I was thrilled to get a lot of new LinkedIn contacts and a lot of nice emails and good information. So I really appreciate that. Okay, just a little bit about Lightext. We are a small consulting firm that's been around for over 20 years, and we have primarily been in the employee learning space. So we work with large corporations, typically financial institutions. I'm a former banker myself, and a lot of state agencies, organizations that have a lot of content, and we develop policy and procedure because we have an expertise in the financial field. A lot of our contract writers have a knowledge of this area. So it could be risk, it could be training, user guides, training guides, e-learning, etc. We do a lot of facilitation and a lot of business analysis and process mapping. So everything's sort of in that space. And our audience is typically employee based learning, as opposed to some public interface, but more internal. So, and in these industries, financial and state, there are tons of employees, tons of procedures, tons of regulations. So a tool like RoboHelp is something that you commonly see and that we commonly implement. So we're also a preferred Adobe partner and do a lot of customized RoboHelp training and implementation consulting. So let's go right into the subject at hand, which is, what is microcontent? So for those of you who are not familiar with it, or it's new to you, you've probably seen it, but it is really it's a lure. It's small bits of information that are typically generated from a larger source. So that could be in the form of small pieces of text, graphics, charts, facts, stats, little automation, GIFs, video, quotes, case studies, something that the user sees a little bit of information that they'd like, or as a response to their query, but it's not the whole enchilada. It's a small, relevant piece of information that they can go to a larger source to investigate further if desired. So what are some of the benefits of adding microcontent to your help system? And there are a lot, in my opinion. I've been implementing microhelp now for about 6 months or so, really getting into it. And I've found that it has a lot of relevance for not only new help systems where you're designing something from scratch and you can really think about how to implement it from the beginning, but it's also really beneficial for organizations that have a lot of legacy RoboHelp content. I work with financial institutions that some of them have been using RoboHelp for over 20 years. And sometimes those help systems get large and unwieldy, and employees have a little bit of a struggle finding relevant information. So I'm finding that microcontent is a really great feature for these types of organizations and this type of use case. So benefits, depending on what you're doing, but certainly it piques the user's interest. So it's if they put in a search query for something, the result, if you've added some microcontent, should be engaging. It should be relevant. It should be small in nature and enable the user to maybe quickly answer their questions without having to do a deep dive, which can certainly improve customer service if you're if your job is customer facing and you're in a call center, or even if your customers, maybe you're a help desk individual and your customer internal facing folks, coming up with a small relevant answer to your question using your help system is going to improve that help system, and it's going to help make it more useful and more relevant. I've also found that it is helpful in eliminating a lot of extraneous content. So a lot of my users, because maybe they can't find what they're looking for, or it hasn't been developed, they create a lot of cheat sheets and desk aids and even emails that they've printed out and pinned to their cubicle walls. And a lot of that is eliminated when you can get a quick answer from MicroHelp. So all of that, of course, maximizes the usage of your help system. And I really feel that that's super important, that our help systems are not just built, but they retain relevance, that they're continually improved upon. And this is a quick and easy way to improve your help system. So let's talk a little bit about how microcontent is designed in RoboHelp. And it's this simple workflow. For those of you who have created microcontent, I'm sure that I'm assuming that you found it pretty easy to develop, and I hope that I demonstrate that today. But the basic workflow is that you create a microcontent group. You add intents and responses, and intents are questions that you think a user might ask and what you think their response might be, or what you think a good response would be. And then you add phrases and keywords to those questions so that no matter how they, or in many different ways that they might ask the question, they get a relevant result and that the microcontent appears. You need to generate the microcontent output just like you generate any other layout in RoboHelp. And then you have some options. And I actually ended this by saying add to frameless layout, which is the most common way to generate microcontent or to display it. But there are a couple of other ways as well. So, and we'll talk about that. So how is microcontent accessible in RoboHelp? If you're using a frameless layout, and microcontent does require that layout, it can come to you most typically in the form of a search snippet. So once you put in a question or a search term that is attached to that microcontent via a keyword or phrase, etc., you'll receive the concise search result. You can also add your microcontent as a topic. So it can be added to your table of contents. And that means not just maybe that, it doesn't mean just that one question, but when you create a microcontent group, all of the microcontent intents and responses are available as a topic or can be output like that. It can also be integrated with artificial intelligence via a chatbot engine. So in your frameless output, you can add a little chatbot, and it will, through the phrases and keywords that you identified, along with Google Dialogflow, which is the AI that's used with Microcontent. It will continue to learn and help answer questions for the end user in that way. You can also generate it as a small help file, and that can be delivered standalone to be used on an app, a knowledge base, in some other form. So just sort of as a direct text or intents and responses. So before you create microcontent, that hopefully gave you sort of an understanding of the workflow and how it's used. But there's some pre-planning that's involved. And this is where you really need to know your end user and your audience. And I sort of use the how, what, why, when, where for determining how I'm going to create my microcontent, specifically when it comes to creating certain microcontent groups. What would my groups look like? And then from there, what would I put in those groups? What types of intents and responses would I add? So again, I'm using my audience to give me those cues in terms of how's my help system being used today? The example that I'm going to show you today is for a servicing group for a financial institution, and they have different types of users. It's used for folks that do payoff processing, compliance oriented individuals, payment processors, all different types of groups that have like specific needs. They might not be interested in the whole help system, but they're interested in certain areas. Creating microcontent groups for these folks, parsing them out and creating nice groups for them helps them get the microcontent that they need and enables me to create FAQ or just some help pages for them that have microcontent. So as we go through the demo, I think that will be a little bit more clear. But I consider, why would small answers be applicable or important to them? Sometimes it's because, I think I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of our help systems are used not just as for policies and procedures or information, but they're really used for training. They're used to help employees train for the job, or they're used for calls and customer service, and response time is really important. Employees could even be evaluated based on their response time. So that's some of the things that I take into consideration when I'm planning my microcontent and thinking about my audience. So from here, I'm going to go right into the demo, and we're going to talk today about we're going to actually do it together, but we'll create a microcontent group and we'll add intents and responses. We'll add keywords and phrases, add it as an FAQ page, and then generate our microcontent in a frameless output, and then we'll go ahead and test it. So with that, I'm going to go out of the slideshow, and I'm going to present in terms of showing you what the final product can look like, and then backing into going under the hood and looking at the RoboHelp application and showing you how it's put together. So this is a bank that I've been working with, and we've developed an online help system. This is a frameless output. I'm sure many of you who are using 2020 have probably experimented with this layout, and I really like it. It's something that's like easy to put together, and that was another webinar. But for those of you who are familiar, this is these tiles are driven from my table of contents. So these are either books or pages in my table of contents. And but what may not be apparent to you is this general FAQ and compliance essentials are actually micro help topics that I've added to my table of contents. So let's look at how a search term could potentially come back to you in microcontent form as a search snippet. So if I was to enter a topic like tickler, this is something that is used throughout the bank. This particular bank uses a tickler system to monitor everything, all of their customer service interactions and tickets and follow-up and those types of things. So there's a lot of content about ticklers throughout the content source. In fact, here are my results, and you can see that there's already several results for ticklers. So instead of, as an end user, going through and trying to decide where are my, how do I add a ticket? That's something that I do all the time. And I just want to have like the main steps on how to find a tickler or how to add a tickler. This information is available to me in a microcontent form. So I have a drop-down screens if I want to look at those. So it takes in my images, etc. And that's from my interaction with my end users. I know that that's something that they need to know on an ongoing basis. In fact, I was just talking to this client and asked them what their experience was in using microcontent and using the FAQs that are available to them. And they're really sold on it. And now it's effective when they want to add content, when they want to add more quick intents and responses. They don't see it like that, but when they want to add more quick search results in the form of microcontent. So, and they think about it whenever they add or change content, they think about what they would like to have as microcontent. So if I'm an end user and I want to see more about this, I can click on see more. So that is the bait, as we discussed, for a more detailed procedure. So so that's a piece of microcontent. Another way to display microcontent is, in general, is by adding the microcontent in the form of FAQs or topic pages. So this is a microcontent category called general FAQs and another category called compliance essentials. So I know overall, these are some of the things that people want to see, and these are all of the, this is all the microcontent that I had in this particular group. And here's my how do I submit a footprints ticket, the same one. So these are my my quick and dirty questions that I think that and that they've told me that people would like to know very quickly. So again, my audience has very detailed procedures because they tend to use their content source as training, as well as all of their policies, as well as their procedures, as well as compliance. So something like, quick and easy answers are important to them. This particular group also needs to do annual compliance training. So they will often need to hone in on their skills and their knowledge. So these are just some of the essentials that we've been adding to help them prepare for their certifications. And it can also be in the form of a video. This is a video that was added on Service Members Civil Relief Act. So, if I search up here, loan boarding. I think that should give me a microcontent result. So again, how do I board a new loan? This is a very complex procedure, but here are my quick steps. So those will always, if I have a microcontent for a search term, that will always come up first, along with some other additional results as well. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go into the application and start taking a look at microcontent, and together we'll build a new group and run it and test it. So from my authoring panel, I am going to click on microcontent, and it's here already. So let me just actually close all these items. So from my authoring panel, I'm going to click on microcontent. If you're doing it for the first time, it will be empty. But if I double click on it, you can see here's obviously this is the compliance one. Here are the intents, the questions, and here are the responses. FAQs, here are my intents, and here are my responses. As you can see from the demo that I just showed you, these are actually in drop-downs, but they will all appear when I'm looking at them in my microcontent editor. So I'm going to get rid of that. Delete those right now, because we're going to create a new microcontent group. So, and you can have as many as you like, as many as you feel are relevant, and maybe only one is relevant for your content source. For me, there are several, I think, that are helpful. And as I said, my user is now really latching on to this and coming up with ideas themselves. So I'm going to click on the plus sign here and add a new microcontent group, and I'm going to call it escrow FAQs. So this one will be specific to escrow. I'm going to go ahead and shorten the file name. And you can see that it has an MC extension, which obviously illustrates to me that it's a microcontent. So I'm going to click on done. And now I have a blank microcontent editing window that's ready for me to populate. So to get started, I'm going to go to my contents, and you can see that in my contents, if I open my microcontent folder, I have my 3 microcontent groups. So another way for me to access those. In my collateral area right here, I have a lot of escrow processing, and these topics are very long and wieldy, and again, used a lot for training, but there's definitely a need for microcontent here. So I'm going to open up one of these just to kind of give you an idea. Oops. I'm going to remove that. I had added that, testing it out, but we'll do it together. So looks like that. All right. Sorry, I don't know why I have an H. You can see that accidentally I added an H to this header. I don't know why. All right. So this is a pretty long and daunting topic, and most of these they're actually all quite large. Some of them larger than others. I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to add some microcontent here. So, and I apologize if I have some background noise. I have a tenant in the building next to me that is moving, so I have no idea. Anyway, I am going to take some microcontent or identify some information here that I think should be added to my microcontent. So I'm going to cancel. Actually, okay. So The way that I like to add the microcontent is to have one topic up and my FAQs up at the same time. And then I like to split the view and then take a look at this and identify some intents and responses. So in looking at this, it even helps me maybe break some information out if I want to, with some additional headers. I might even consider that because this is so long. It will help me in identifying the microcontent. So I know that one of the common things that's done in all of these procedures is that the processor needs to identify whether an escrow exists or not. So I'm going to add that as my first intent. I'm going to type here. Now, how can I tell if an escrow type exists on my loan? And one way that I can add microcontent is to create a microcontent snippet. And first, by the way, you must save every time you write an intent, or this intent choice will not appear. If you forget, you can always go back and do that. So I'm going to take this little piece of information and I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on Add to Microcontent. And I'm going to choose my group, which is escrow. And if I hadn't saved this, this microcontent intent would not be here. And I have to just go back and save. But I'm going to select that and click on Apply. Okay, and you can see the line around here, which tells me that this is now a microcontent snippet, if you will. It works just like a snippet does. So I'm going to click on Save, and now this has been entered into my response. So there's different ways to add microcontent, but this is a great way because if you make any changes like the system, I'm going to click on Save All. It acts just like a snippet, and it gets changed right there. So you don't have to think about matching up your intents and responses. So now that I've done that, I've added my first intent, my first response. I'm going to go back to my intent, and I'm going to add some phrases that I think the user might ask, like, how do I confirm an escrow on Horizon? What's an escrow record? Different ways that I think that they might want to find out information about this particular question. Something like that. And then keywords. I want to add a bunch of keywords that I think might help my user get to this information, such as escrow, Horizon. I just press enter, and you can see that those appear right there. Loan master, maintenance, options, spell it right. And I think that's, I did add Horizon. So I think that's good. Escrow record. Okay, so those are some of my keywords that I will add. So I'm going to click on Save All. And now I'm going to add another intent and response. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end here, and I'm going to add intent below. And I'm going to take another look at this. And I can see that at the end here, I have a small piece of information about posting transactions, but it's a little bit more detailed than I would like as a piece of microcontent. It's okay, but I think that that if I summarize this a little bit better, it might work better as a piece of microcontent. So I am going to make the intent, how do I post an escrow transaction? And I think what I'll do, instead of taking this as a snippet, I'm just going to summarize. So I'm going to say post just taking some of the main gist of the information here and summarizing it. And then maybe okay. So I've just taken this and just made it a little bit more concise. I think that will work really well. Now, if I made changes here, they wouldn't automatically populate here. So that's something that I have to keep in mind if I do this. I'm going to add my list style over here. So that looks good. So I'm going to click on Save All. I like to do that often. And then let's just add one or two more to our group here. So I'm going to add intent below. I happen to know that this is quite a lengthy procedure. Again, let me take this out. I like to look at these side by side. This is one that sorry about that. Huh? I don't know why I can't. Oh, because it's already there. All right. Let's see. I already have that as a snippet. So another one that I might want to do is maybe verify escrow payment. I might want to rethink about this one a little bit because it's so lengthy. I might want to break that up a little bit so that I can, chunk it with some other headers so that I can make it a little, add some smaller type of information. But I might want to, how do I verify an escrow payment? That might be another good one. So let's use that. And let's just take this as and of course I've got to save that first so that appears. I'm going to add it to Microcontent, and my group needs to be escrow. And I'm going to click on Apply. Not sure why that. Okay. All right. So here's how do I verify an escrow payment. I'm not sure why I had that come up, but anyway, so I have my snippet here, and you can see that I have screenshots in this one. I have a expanding text. I have lots of links, so those will all work when I create my microcontent output. So let's see. I think maybe we could add, if I find another a good one, like we'll add one that's add in tab below, and we'll add something about how do I handle lost drafts less than 5,000. And let's go ahead and save that and add one more little piece right here. Okay, and once I click on save, it will populate. Sometimes there is a delay, and if you see it that it's blank, just exit out and come back in and it will appear. So let's go ahead and add some keywords and phrases to each one of these intents. Maybe how, we'll just do a couple. And let's add some keywords. That one. And then let's go to escrow payment. Maybe something like payment in Horizon. Again, this is helpful because later if I do attach this to a Google Dialog flow, it will help it learn some keywords and phrases. So I'm going to put escrow. And let's do this one right here, and then we'll move on. And we will add escrow and then OTE and then wire. And there we are. Okay, so we've just created a nice microcontent group. So let's kind of take a look at it again. I'm going to close this, and you can see what my group looks like. So that's great. I have enough that I think that will be very helpful for my escrow folks. So I know now that when I run my output, it will appear as these results will appear in my search snippet. But I think I'd also like that to be in my table of contents. So I'm going to click on my table of contents, and this happens to be in my collateral section. And I think what I will do is take my escrow FAQs and just drag and drop it right under collateral. So now that will appear as an FAQ page under my collateral chapter or section of this particular manual. So I'm going to click on Save All. You can see I have these can be reordered if I want, however I want to manage them. So let's go ahead and generate our output and test it and take a look at it. So the first thing that I want to do is go to my microcontent, and let's kind of take a look at that. There's not a lot of setup that you want to do, but you must run this first before you run your frameless output. So this is the path where it will appear. Here is the content, so you can see that I have these two groups, and I don't see my third group. So sometimes what I need to do if I don't see my third group is I duplicate this actually. Let me see. And now it appears. So I can remove this one if I'd like. In fact, I think I'll just keep this one right here. So here's my microcontent group. All three of them are available, so I just check the ones that I want. And if I had any conditional expressions or variables, I would add those. So I'm just going to generate the preset. And this is putting it all together. And we'll take a look at this in its raw form as well after it's done. So if I take a look at it, you can see that here are the new ones that I added. Here are my compliance, and here are my FAQ, other general FAQs. So they are kind of scroll through. I can see those. So this can be delivered if you want it just to go to be added to some other app. It can be delivered directly like that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And I'm just going to rename and make this done. All right. Actually, I think I have to generate it again now that I renamed it. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and generate our front of this output. I would love to ask questions right now, but it'd be a perfect opportunity. But as soon as this is, as soon as we've kind of taken a look at it and tested it, then I would love to entertain some of your questions. If I want to interface this with a Google Dialog, a little chat bot, once I've generated my microcontent, I can set up a chatbot engine using Google Dialogflow. So you need to set up an agent on Google Dialog, and if you click here, there is a process for doing that. And it's a little bit time consuming, but in the end, you can add a nice little virtual assistant to your desktop, to your output. So now that I've done that, I'm going to generate this is my frameless layout. And let's take a look at it. And there was no special setting that I needed to add to I didn't go over the settings, but there's nothing that I needed to do to include this microcontent. It's just going to be included because it's part of my project. So again, I'm always thinking about ways that I think that the end user might be able to use this. Let's go ahead and view the output. And I'm going to put escrow in here. And you can see that this is how do I verify an escrow payment came right up. So right away, and you can see that there's tons of search results. So this is a great way here's like a little expanded text, the screens, etc. So a great way to see some more about this topic, but with a little lure, a little bit of information to help them navigate through an awful lot of content here. So I'm going to go ahead and just read more so that I can get into it. And then let's take a look at our collateral section. Now we do have our escrow FAQs, and I can reorder those if I'd like to, but here are all of our intents and responses that we added to that particular group. So we've tested it. We still have all of our information here. Let's see, we can test a few. I think I put in OTE as one of the items. So you can see that this is actually a glossary term as well as a little search snippet, microcontent search snippet. So I've got a lot of good information here that I can use to help my end users find their results a little bit easier. So with that, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to go ahead and just share my, it's 9:47, so I have about 10 or 15 minutes for questions, and I'd be happy to entertain those. It's a pretty simple process. I hope I was able to clarify that. I do want to say, if I'd like to create a chatbot for this, and I do have plans to, and that would appear right here on my homepage. So that little dialogue flow where I have a little virtual assistant where I could add questions like, how do I board a loan, or how do I make an escrow payment? I can have some dialogue assistance right here in my homepage and my frameless layout. So with that, I'm going to, again, go back to my presentation. Yes.
Yeah, we have a few questions. Maybe you even let Robo help open screen share.
Oh, sure.
So that we can maybe look at specific things together for the questions.
Yep.
For everyone, just one quick note for everyone who still want to post a question, please use the Q&A pod. That makes me managing the questions much more easy, and which one have already been answered and which not. Would much appreciate that. So let me start with Rebecca. She had, about 20 minutes ago, she had a question: does not allowing inline formatting affect how your micro-content appears?
Does not allowing inline formatting affect how your microcontent appears?
So in the project settings, you have that allow inline formatting toggle button where you can disallow inline formatting. I don't think so, Rebecca. I don't think that this would make a problem. You can still do things like making things bold, and you could still do inline formatting in the source code of the microcontent. So I would say it does not affect it. Do you say, Beth?
I haven't experimented with it, but I would agree with that. Yeah, I just let it appear as it was designed to appear, or as it chose to appear. But yeah, I agree with your answer, Stefan.
Rebecca, so I answered that with we need to test that. You can drop an email to techcom@adobe.com, maybe with a sample file or so, and then we can look at this together and follow up with you on that if you send us an email. There's another question from Rebecca. Did you want to say something, Beth?
Oh, I'm looking at the Q&A as well, and I see that Rebecca also asked about the Google dialogue. It does take a little bit of time. It went on my other screen. You need to, this is where the link, sorry. No, that's not my RoboHelp application. So when I clicked here, I had it open a second ago. Now let me do it again. There we go. So when you click on the link, it directs you to Google Cloud, Google Dialogflow, and you need to set up and build an agent. And there are some steps involved, but ultimately what you're able to procure, you build an agent, you set up a service account and by going through all of the different steps. And it was a little time consuming for me because I had never done it before. So, I'm still in the process of building my agent. But once you build an agent and a service account, it provides you with a JSON file. And then that JSON file, you can you can add in your, remember exactly where that went. Dialogflow. I believe that then that goes in here, and you have the JSON file that you need to start to create your. Actually, I'm sorry. The JSON file goes right here, and I had already populated it. I apologize. So once you get your JSON file, you populate it in the Dialogflow window right here. And then there are a couple of other steps that you need to do. And I'm sort of in the process of designing this, but you run it and then add it into your index or your start file and run it, and then the dialogue or the virtual assistant will appear on your homepage. So there are some tutorials for doing that, and Adobe had shared a video to me on how that's done. So if any of you are interested, I would, advise reaching out to Stefan.
Okay. I think as we have a couple of more questions, we can also follow up on that offline. So let me go through the other questions. We have another question from Joel Howard. How is a chatbot different from a search snippet? Is it the same content, just served up two different ways?
Yeah, the difference in the chatbot is that it's an actual virtual assistant, and it's artificial intelligence. So it's learning as it goes along in terms of how your users will ask questions. So when you go to Google Dialogflow, you can add intents and responses there as well. And it will continue to learn how your users will interact with it and ask questions, and then respond in a more dialogue sort of environment. So as opposed to seeing a search snippet as just a concise answer to a question, Dialogflow is more dialogue. How can I help you today? Thank you. Some of those items within it.
It's also two different places where it appears in your output.
You're right.
So
yes.
One appears in this small chatbot flyover that is over your website, it appears as answers in the chatbot dialogue, while the search snippet appears in the search results.
Right. So this, as we showed you, it's going to show right here in the search results, and the assistant is going to lay on your homepage.
Okay. So we have a question from Darren Dong. Darren is asking, is there a way to prioritize the responses? Can end users vote on what the best answer is for an FAQ? You mean, Darren, I guess you mean in the chatbot itself, right? If in the chatbot, a user can vote on an answer from the chatbot.
Okay.
You can put that in the chat.
So if like I have the term escrow a few times, and how does it know which answer to come up with? That might be your question. If I'm interpreting that correctly. And actually, Stefan, I don't know how it decides if you have escrow as the search term and you have several that use that keyword, how it decides which one should appear. I'm not sure that I know the logic behind that. Maybe you do.
I'm actually not sure if I understood the question from Darren completely. My interpretation is that it's related to the answers or responses that the chatbot is giving on a certain user question. And I understand it as the idea is that users can educate the chatbot what is the best answer by voting up and down questions. But that's my interpretation of it.
Yes.
So let me just mark that question as answered.
Yeah, because both of us had different interpretations of the question. So
difficult. So, but Darren, feel free to reach out to us on techcom@adobe.com and then look into that together as well. Okay, what else do we have? Which one does the end user seem to like the best, easiest answer? Yeah. So that was in addition to that, not with the chatbot, but the results of microcontent. Okay. No, there's currently no such possibility. That would mean that the published RoboHelp output would need to have some learning mechanism to take such recommendations from users into account when presenting search results. Mm-hmm. That is not implemented. But it's a nice idea. Drop us a line on techcom@adobe.com and maybe we can put something like this, if it's technically possible, on the roadmap. I like the idea, actually.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you can think about that when you're designing. You might want to, use your keywords more specifically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's also helpful for the author by looking into the results of it. Then there's a question from Johanna Jones. Can we go over how you group your microcontent again and why?
Okay. My microcontent is grouped based on my understanding of my user, my end user. So I know that they have a need for general FAQs, like what are the hours of operation and, general information that fall into this bucket. But I also know that they have to be trained on compliance issues. So this one is just starting to be populated, but it will have more information on compliance FAQs, if you will. I didn't call it FAQs. I decided to name it this. But so my answer is I'm thinking about my end user and I'm thinking about like how they want to decipher all of this content, because this is big and it will get bigger and bigger over time. So who are my users? There's a lot of different users in this. And, one nice way, along with microcontent is to use content filters and filter by audience, those that are doing payments, those that are doing default processing. But again, because there's a lot of folks and there's a lot of complexity with escrow, knowing my end user and their feedback to me, I knew that would be a good group to add. So again, you can have as many groups as you want, or you could have just one general FAQ, and that's it. And you don't even have to put these in your table of contents. They don't have to appear here. If you want them to just appear as microcontent search snippets, that's perfectly fine too. So I hope that helped.
Okay. And there is one last question. Is there a way to prioritize the micro content responses? It asked if there are several responses that come up for a keyword. Can one be floated to the top, or does it depend on AI to determine the best response? Okay, that's a little bit of what we talked about.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, Robert, I saw your message in the private chat. I typed in there. And look at the chat if you've missed something. There's quite some background noise, Beth.
I know. I am very sorry. I had no idea that someone was going to be moving today. So my apologies for the recording. I had no idea.
Yeah, that happens. Okay, I think we have covered also all questions that were in the chat. Even the one about what is the sound. Yeah, I think we're through, Beth.
Okay.
I have not missed one question. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if anybody does have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I do want to mention that we are, please, if you're interested, take down my contact information. We are looking for technical writers right now, especially folks that have experience with RoboHelp. It would be so nice to have some more that are interested in, or that have knowledge of RoboHelp 2020. So if that's any of you and you're interested in potential opportunities, please let me know. And it was a pleasure speaking with all of you today.
Yeah. And also from my side and the rest of the Adobe team, thanks a lot, Beth, for being with us today and walking us through Microcontent and MicroHelp and giving us a demo on that. Thanks to everyone in the audience who joined us today. We really appreciate you having you here. And we have a couple of other interesting webinars lined up, so please always check back on our webinar calendar and subscribe to our newsletter where we regularly announce upcoming webinars. And with that, I stop the recording and say thank you to everyone and thank you to Beth and goodbye. See you next time.